everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I'm joined by a guest who's been here in studio before, Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Appreciate your being back in studio. It's a new year. It's a new General Assembly session. It's a new budget. Budget is coming out tomorrow, but we did hear last night from Governor Raimondo her State of the State. The center released a statement earlier today. Wanted to invite Mike in to let me know what you thought of what the governor said last night.
All right, so I'm going to test you as a fellow Harvard alum and you as viewers. It was a true example of a paralipsis.
A paralipsis? Oh gosh.
Where you cherry pick one good item, mention it, and ignore all the other stuff that might be of more concern around it. That's what happened.
So what did the cherry picked item, there's a lot of reaction that we've heard, but what did you think that the focus was on at the expense of everything else?
The focus is on this move from last place to 28th place in a poll, basically a poll. You know, but our center looks at a lot of broader indexes where we're still in the bottom 10 and have been in the bottom 10. We look at the bottom 10 in business climate. We look at the bottom 10 in family prosperity index. We look at the bottom 10 in our own jobs and opportunity index. We're in the bottom 10 as far as the amount of regulatory burdens that businesses have to face in this state.
So would you call those top rankings fake news?
Well, it's cherry picked.
Depends,
yeah, it's cherry picked, and that was the focus. So I like the upbeat nature of it. It's the governor has to be upbeat, but she also has to live in the real world. You know, because we're not going to solve problems if we don't understand the problems, if we don't confront the problems and address them, and the problem to us is that people are leaving our state. While our population is staying the same, we're losing productive people. We're replacing them with less productive people, but other states are growing, and we are going to lose a U.S. congressional seat after the 2020 census. We're on that path. We're only 157 people away now, and I don't see us turning around in the next 2 years.
So you heard the speech last night, as you said, it was kind of that focusing on the good news. We heard a lot of initiatives that the governor is putting forth that have a price tag with it, and we know that we are facing a projected budget deficit this year of $60 million, looking at over $200 million for FY19. Do you think that was just politics focusing on the good side, or were you listening and saying, can we afford this?
You know, I'm okay with a state of the state, whether it's a president or a governor, giving an optimistic. But then you hope that when they go back and they get into the legislative, that they on another forum or in another, you know, they might acknowledge and work towards the real problems, but they don't. Somehow there's this belief that these tax and spend policies, these giveaways to companies, whether it's training or job credits or whatever it is somehow going to be able to overcome the negative business and taxpayer climate we have in this state, and it's not until you know, I want to give credit to the Speaker of the House. I want to give credit to the Minority Leader Patricia Morgan, who have said we've got to improve the overall business climate for all businesses. Right? The governor talked about the 22 companies they've bribed to come here, and a couple of thousand jobs. Okay. But we're paying for that. It's not sustainable. But you know what? We need hundreds and thousands of new companies, and we need tens of thousands of new jobs if we're going to turn the corner. It's just not big enough. It's just not bold enough, and it's too costly, this corporate welfare strategy she has.
Some of the bold moves that you've advocated for in the past, Mike, zeroing out the sales tax. What's going to be on the agenda for the 2018 General Assembly session?
Well, we one of the reasons I mentioned the speaker is because it was in the newspapers in November. We had Grover Norquist up from Washington, D.C., and we had a meeting with the speaker. The speaker agreed to meet with us just to hear some of his ideas, some of our ideas, and in that meeting, one of the areas we agreed, you know, the sales tax and our school choice push, you know, were the big items we had, but they were never going to happen, right? You know, we might have been a little naive back then in our early years as a center. So we've decided to try to carve out doable, nonpartisan kind of reforms, and reforming regulatory burdens is one of those. And we brought that up with the speaker, and he agreed. And then to hear him actually say that unsolicited during his opening remarks to the General Assembly session this year, and he spent a good minute on it, of only, you know, a 5 or 10 minute speech, was very encouraging. So we think we're gonna see some regulatory reforms. We haven't discussed specific
I was
pieces of
going to
legislation.
ask what the nuts and bolts would be. What would
Yeah.
you like to see for regulatory reform?
So within the next 10 days, our center will put out a report on occupational licensing. We're gonna call it the right to earn, because we believe that every Rhode Islander has the right to earn a living in the occupation that they prefer without having to ask permission from the government, without having to pay fees, without having to jump through training and educational hoops that you have to have so much, of these stupid courses that are often irrelevant in order to work. We don't think that should be the case. So we'll have a report coming out with a list of specific legislative pushes. What we'd like to see, there are some specific things like the hair braider freedom, right?
We saw that last year.
Yeah, right. There's others, there's a new Uber fee imposed at the airport. We'd like to see that go away. And there'll be some other smaller items, but generally it's big things that need to happen. And some of those big things are a new process for when reforms, regulations can be implemented in the first place, what we call those sunrise provisions. Before any new regulation is put on businesses, it has to go through a rigorous cost-benefit analysis. A clear statement of need, a clear statement of abuse, and then what's the cost-benefit analysis. We don't have that right now. Somebody has a whim, other people have a whim, they pass it without any study.
So who do you think is going to be able to do that? They're going to have to go to the fiscal advisors within each chamber. Who's going to be doing that sort of analysis to say, here's where the numbers are? Because heaven knows we look to the CBO in DC, and there's oftentimes dispute over that. So who would put forth that type of information?
Probably oversight committee. These kind of bills probably should go before oversight committee. So there's a standard process to evaluate them. And that'll be some of the legislation in that sunrise. There's also a sunset provision we'd like to see happen, whereby some of these old crazy rules that are out there that are either outdated or would need to be rethought will go away unless somebody proactively comes back and says, okay, we should re-implement this regulation. Without that, there should be a process where these things just become unenforceable or they go off the books or something like that. So big sunrise and big sunset provisions would be a great help.
Okay, that's a good start. So looking at, again, these regulatory burdens on businesses, is that the focus? Are there any additional legislative items on the agenda?
Well, there are some other items related to regulatory reform. One issue that's very interesting, civil asset forfeiture. Are you familiar with that issue?
From a tertiary standpoint.
Did you know that the government can seize property from people who have committed no crime just on the suspicion of law enforcement or whoever, and often, even if that person ends up found not guilty, they can't get their property back. Could be car, could be cash, could be tools of their trade, supplies in their trade, and Rhode Island ranks, I think, a D- in that area. So again, think about it. So if we have all these crazy regulations that burden businesses, and if somebody's suspected of violating them, they could have their property seized and never get it back, and we don't have good laws on that. So we greatly believe in protection of private property rights, and so we're gonna look to have some specific reforms to amend our civil forfeiture laws in this state.
Very interesting.
It is an interesting topic.
Looking forward to the remainder of the session. You've got some notes here. I've got some additional questions, but it looks like there's some things you
We'll go to your questions first. Yeah.
So what did you think of when you heard the governor put forth $1 billion for the school construction over 10 years? Do you think that's feasible? I mean, we do know the state of the schools, and we've heard some feedback on it. I mean, if that happens, again, are we just looking to see where are their cuts?
Well, let's spend a few minutes talking about that, because this is a very interesting topic. First, do we really have that need? If we're going to take a 21st century look at education, does it necessarily mean herding kids by the hundreds or thousands into big buildings? There's online, there's homeschooling, there's all kinds of new educational efforts. So do we really want to invest in something when maybe the whole model of education is going to be changing? Well, it is changing. I mean, it is changing. So I haven't even seen yet the justification for why we need to invest in school buildings, why school buildings will be the educational model 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
You raise a very interesting point.
It's a very legitimate question, and I would like to see, before we even say we've got to go out and find $1 billion, we got to justify that we even need it in the first place, if that's what we're going to need 5, 10, 20 years from now. Assuming we do need it, you know, it sounds awful familiar, doesn't it? Didn't we kind of hear this argument 2 or 3 years ago about tolls and bridge and road infrastructure, and therefore we need a new toll? So what new toll, what new fee, what new tax does the governor have in store for individuals or businesses? I don't know. I guess we'll find out pretty soon, right, when the budget comes out, I would guess. We also have a couple of solutions to help with that. As you know, I mentioned school choice earlier. Our educational scholarship program, by economist-driven, not our own economists, national economist-driven modeling, would save the state of Rhode Island about $20 million a year, because there would be thousands of kids who would not be educated by the government anymore. They'd be going to private schools with a very small scholarship. The way we had it, no more than 6,000. So every school district in the state saves if they don't have to educate X number of kids. You could use that $20 million a year to probably fund about a $400 million bond, without having to tax anybody more, without having any more, let's put it, using existing educational funding. We could, by implementing school choice the way we've designed it, you could fund a bond to get almost half of that $1 billion in the first place.
I have a question about that. You've been up there
Sure.
fighting that fight for a number of years now. And when you're talking with people, have you found people have come around on the issue as you've kept pushing and pushing, especially hearing from families, or are people really stuck in their ways?
Well, I think we're hearing from parents and students that they want an escape hatch from some of these schools. But as far as up on Smith Hill, no, there's no more openness to that. I mean, the unions see it as fewer teachers, therefore fewer dues, therefore fewer political power. And they would never, go along with it. They'd have to be dragged kicking and screaming to accept it. And there's nobody, I don't think, up here on Smith Hill who's willing to take on the unions right now.
So that's your, responding to the governor's proposal for that $1 billion, saying here's our proposal as to how there could be a funding mechanism without taxation on Rhode Islanders.
We could fund a large part of it, 40% of it. Now, we also, with the toll situation and the bridges, well, I should say the bridges, we also recommended, and I think we talked about it right here years ago, that if we're gonna spend that kind of money on capital improvement, why should we continue to pay the highest rates in the country? Why should it cost 20-30% more than it should? We should, instead of contracting with the state, we should use a private sector contractor, give them breaks from prevailing wage laws and other laws that drive up costs through all the union process. If we're going to spend $1 billion, let's get $1.2 billion worth of building out of it, rather than get 700 million, I should say, out of it. It's just a wasteful process we have right now. We're going to be throwing money down the drain, and if we're going to spend that amount of money, let's do it in a much more efficient way.
So we heard some indications last night from the governor what she's looking to put forth in the budget. We're going to hear about the budget tomorrow. While I still have you here, what are you looking specifically to see when this budget's released tomorrow?
Well, again, the increases. Again, we have a problem that our tax burden is too high in individuals and businesses. You try to hide it behind fees and this fee and that, an internet tax or a DMV fee for registration or something like that. But the bottom line is, unless we start rolling back taxes and rolling back regulations, we're going to continue to be a non-hospitable place for families and businesses. And our concept is I'm looking for ways we grow our state's tax base, right? That means more people coming here to increase the amount of people pay regular income tax, more businesses coming here. But right now we're doing more and more policies seem to drive them away. So we're looking for a reversal of that. Does anybody get it? That the only way we can pay for all the obligations we've made is to grow our tax base, which means we need more people and more businesses here, which means we need policies that will attract them here. And I don't see anybody that really gets that.
So we're going to hear from the governor tomorrow on her budget proposal. You just mentioned that the center is going to be putting forth your legislative agenda package, so to speak. What else can we expect from the center in the coming weeks?
Well, we'll be highlighting. We'll be starting a new feature probably next month called the Progressive Bad Bill of the Week. While we want to promote our free market solutions, we're going to be really exposing the harmful effect of the progressive legislation. And we know there's going to be some doozies. We know single-payer health care is going to come out. So it is one of our missions of this year is to expose the harmful impact of the progressive agenda and let voters know that you know, this is a progressive Democrats, you know, if I can be honest about it, and let you know that when not all Democrats are the same. You've got kind of the Kennedy, moderate Democrats that your parents and grandparents probably supported, and then you've got the Bernie Sanders Democrats who really don't share the same values you and I have. You know, they're not really patriotic. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in religious freedom. They don't believe in capitalism. They believe that they know best and they should tell businesses and people how to live their own lives and run their own businesses.
So
those aren't American values.
When do we expect to start seeing this bill of the week?
Progressive bad bill of the week, probably, hopefully by the end of the month would be my hope.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that and everything coming out of the center moving forward. But as someone who responded to the governor's state of the state, wanted to bring you back in here to talk about the state of the state, and I'm sure we'll have you back in soon.
Yeah, we like to talk in full truths, not paralipsises.
Not paralipsises. Mike Stenhouse, thank you for coming in. We'll have you back in soon. We'll let you go around the corner.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, thanks. Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity put out a statement today on the governor's state of the state last night. Wanted him in studio to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to be right back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Don't go anywhere. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome in my next guest, Avi Neville, the founder of the Rhode Island-Israel Collaborative. Avi, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. We've had a product of your work in before. You just launched last fall, but we were able to talk about the blockchain and cryptocurrency conference at Salve Regina before the holidays, but you've been busy since then with this new nonprofit traveling to Israel. And then there's a big event taking place at Bryant next month. So let's bring it back, all the way back, as to why you formed this organization.
So first of all, again, thank you for having me. And basically, in the last few years, there is an effort in Rhode Island to build a relation with Israel, mainly business relations. There's always were good relations in academia and research, and we felt that the time had come to organize a more concentrated effort and building an organization which is a non-for-profit, it's a 506, will help us to create a message, help to build a collaboration, bring companies from Israel to Rhode Island, vice versa to Israel, and help the economy to the benefit of the people in both places.
Very good. And as we had mentioned, we had in studio before an IBM exec from Israel coming in to talk about blockchain and cryptocurrency. But you just were over in Israel for the collaborative. Right. Talk with us a little bit about that visit.
Yeah, so part of our effort, obviously it's here in Rhode Island, and we wanted to have the first event in Israel to spread the message. We were hosted by the municipality of Herzliya, which already building some relation with Newport. And we invited the Israelis that were in Rhode Island because of the schools, Brown, RISD, Johnson and Wales, and Rhode Islanders who live in Israel, and other people who are interested to do business with both in both locations. First of all, to deliver the message we exist and we're here to help. Second, we would like them, those people that already know about Rhode Island, to be our ambassadors, conduit, and obviously to create the know-how about Israel, because truth of the matter is that both in Israel, Rhode Island is not known very well. So part of the effort is to really put the word Rhode Island in Israel so people know about it.
And you mentioned the potential for collaboration with Newport. Talk a little bit about that. Why Newport?
Well, historically, a few years ago, Newport showed interest to build a relation with Israel, and there is some similarities. We connected them with the municipality of Herzliya. There were visits from the municipality, members of the municipality in Newport. And then when we took the mission in December 2016. Evan Smith from Discover Newport came with us and other members from Newport to promote tourism to Newport from Israel. After all, Newport has the oldest Jewish synagogue, and there is a history that goes way back between Israel and Newport, where Torah, some money from his estate in 1860 helped to build the first Jewish neighborhood outside of Jerusalem. A lot of people don't know about it. So there is a synergy that's going back to 1860s.
Do you think that that is a big tourist draw for folks in Israel who might be interested in that history piece of Newport?
I do believe so. Typically when Israeli travel a lot of times, they travel to synagogues around the world. Myself, when I travel overseas, one of the things I do personally is traveling, visiting synagogues. And the Torah synagogue in Newport is definitely a very interesting point of interest to the Israelis and Jews in general.
And how many folks were involved when you were over in Israel in this collaborative, when you were at this conference last time? How many people total were involved in this process?
When we did the process, you're talking about the recent mission?
The recent mission, yeah.
Yeah, the recent visit. So we had volunteers from Rhode Island, to Rhode Islanders who live in Israel, young people, which helped us. We have one of our board members who lives also in Israel, helping to build it, and then people from the municipality. Then we had speakers that talked about their experience. One of them were Ronen Simanto from IBA Accelerator. That was on your program. It was very interesting. He was 3 days in Rhode Island, and he told people that participated how impressed he was. He never knew about Rhode Island before that. I mean, he heard the name, but what he was able to accomplish in 3 days, the contact, the welcoming that he received, the atmosphere, he was very surprised, and he talked about that. Then we had Kobi Sharvit, and Kobi Sharvit is the head of underwater archaeology in the Israel Ministry of Archaeology, and he told about the collaboration between URI and the excavation in Caesarea in Israel. It's a program that goes now for 7 years. He couldn't say enough about the URI team, and as a matter of fact, he told the crowd, the people that came, and myself, that all the applicants to work in that Caesarea excavation underwater now are going and scrutinized through URI. There's a point of contact, and again, that's just because it did a great job, and he would like to explore and make it even bigger relation. So those are very good example of relations. It's one is very long term; it's already 7 years, and one is a very short term. And both of them just couldn't say enough how impressed, and they would like to do more. So.
Fantastic. Well, you just had a great mission over to Israel, but the news is next month in February you're going to be at Bryant University having an event there. So talk with viewers a little bit more about that.
Sure. So historically, we just had 3 missions to Israel. We worked very close with both Commerce RI, the Chaffee Center, Bryant University, Katie Terrio, the International Trade Director, which is on our board as well. And the Chaffee Center at Bryant University, which is a close contact, felt that it would be good to do a joint event, and we definitely wanted to do that. To tell people about the business opportunities in Israel. It will be on February 7. It's 8 to 12. And basically we'll talk about different subjects, about, life science. There will be a representative from the Bird Foundation about funding opportunities for research for Rhode Island Israeli companies. There will be other speakers. There will be a Rhode Island companies that will talk about their success in Israel as a result of the missions in the past. And basically we'll teach a little bit about culture and how to do business in Israel. And we hope that will attract more people to go and do business, because in the end of the day, it's a good market for Rhode Island companies. And every mission we had in the last 3 years with Commissary was very successful, and the Chaffee Center was very successful. There were results, and as a matter of fact, we had people that returned on all three missions, as a fact that they were successful in the first one, so they will return And I think that's a testimony to the importance. And we hope to have another one in the end of the year. So just
fantastic. Well, we're going to have the link up to that one in February. But talk with us a little bit about doing business between Israel and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some red tape, a lot of red tape, and can the collaborative really help kind of people kind of move through the process if they're interested in working with the other country?
Yeah. So first of all, I think Israelis are very gracious because I don't know how many people know, but Israel get every year around $3 billion for defense, but around 2.7 billion out of it have to be repurchased in the United States. So it means there is opportunities for local companies to sell to the Israeli defense. We had in the past people coming here from the Israeli defense explaining how to do business with them, and it was successful because there are Rhode Island companies that are benefiting from it. Also, we help to people to understand the culture differences and just create contacts. As a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, we received a call from a person. He did not know how, and with a couple telephone calls, and that's our job as an organization, is to help to be the conduit to those relations. We connected them with people. Even today, just before we came to the, before we came to the meeting, someone wrote me. I was at a blockchain conference and I want to do something with an Israeli company, and that's exactly the sample. We kind of become an address to help people, because in the end of the day, our measurement of success is how many Rhode Island companies will do business in Israel, vice versa, and the same with academia and research. If we can help to create more agreement, more exchange, then we'll consider it success.
And it sounds very B2B. It sounds very from the ground level. Don't necessarily need elected officials or politicians involved in the process. Businesses can contact you and sort of do it themselves.
No, we feel that we are only part of the package, of the toolkit. Yes, we can be a helpful conduit, but we don't know everybody. We have to work with everybody, with Commerce RI, with the Israeli counterpart, with a different Chamber of Commerce here in Rhode Island. And it's a classic case. Someone in Israel a couple of days called and asked for some contact in Rhode Island. I called Commerce RI. They helped me with the contact. It went back. And the same, it goes for Rhode Island companies. When we need help to find someone in Israel, we use a contact. So we kind of a conduit. I mean, we know
You're
a lot,
conduit.
but we're trying to just make it easy. But we are part of a team. We are not just trying to be alone there.
It takes a village, that is for sure. So you've got the event coming up in February. Talked about your interest in perhaps doing something later in the year. But what else is on the plate for the collaborative as 2018 gets underway? Yeah,
so what we want to do, we have March 13 coming, and we'll announce an event that will be on the subject of wine. So,
okay.
So he was working in the detail this morning, so we'll be happy to, and it will be, some of it will be open to the public, and again, some of it will be with Johnson & Wales as part of the academic part.
Fantastic.
Then we are in discussion to have another conference later in the year about life science and healthcare. Both interests are very high, both in Israel and in Rhode Island, and we're talking with our organization here in Rhode Island about a potential organization together to organize an event together, and we have a couple other things that's in work, so I cannot say
okay, we'd have to get it out of you. Well, you just launched this in the last fall. Did you anticipate this sort of momentum that you've gotten off so far?
I'm very surprised and happy. First of all, when we decided to form it, and again, it's a nonprofit and I do it as a volunteer, I approached people to be members of the board, and I had a very positive reply from people. That helped. We have really top people on the board. We have the support of Commerce RI, of the Israeli Economic Minister to North America, the Israeli General Consul in Boston, Yehuda Yaakov. And in general, the community is very eager to participate and help. And in the end of the day, it's a good cause. It's helping people here and people in Rhode Island, and it's something that it's a win-win. And when you have something that's win-win, people want to help. I believe we are the first Chamber of Commerce on from that kind in Rhode Island, and I hope there will be other countries that will do the same, because in the end of the day, we can do help and other chambers can do similar helps.
Fantastic. Well, I wanted you to come back in because you were here with Ronen Simontov when he talked about the blockchain conference at Salve, but really wanted to talk about the collaborative to let folks know a little bit more what you've been up to, what's on your plate, and what to expect from you moving forward. We'll have more information on that February conference. Of course, have links to the collaborative's website. But again, Avi, I appreciate your taking the time to come in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll let
and
you around the
please
corner.
become a member. And if you have any questions, just contact us.
Okay.
And thank you again for having
Avi
me.
Neville, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Avi Neville with the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative just formed a nonprofit status, a 506. Last fall, we had in one of their speakers, Salve Regina, had a Bitcoin and blockchain conference. We had an IBM exec from Israel, Ronen Simontov, come in to talk with us a little bit about that. But since then, Avi's been in Israel, and there's going to be a big conference here at Bryant in February. And of course, we'll have the information for you when we have the link up and available. But don't go anywhere. We're here back in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center in just a minute with the latest gubernatorial candidate to announce here in Rhode Island. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. It's a news and politics show, and we've got the latest candidate to announce for Rhode Island Governor, Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz. I appreciate your taking the time to come in today. Central Falls graduate, yes. Doctor, entrepreneur, and now aspiring politician.
Yes.
When did you decide, and when did you know you wanted to run for governor of Rhode Island?
It's been some time now. It's been, about a year. Maybe even over. Just really, being from Rhode Island, I think it's not only about your upbringing, but the community that helped raise you up. And after seeing what has kind of transpired over the past 3 years, both in education and kind of families that are concerned that the schools are crumbling, their children aren't accessing as many opportunities. That is, healthcare, the problems with UHIP. The displacement of individuals that are struggling with chronic diseases and require long-term care services, and just small businesses that are struggling to know whether they can stay or should stay in Rhode Island, as well as businesses, entrepreneurs that want to create in Rhode Island but don't have access to opportunities. Ultimately, all of those things culminated in my drive to run for governor. I believe that my skill set, my experience from healthcare to being an executive, to building a business, to being involved in advocacy around health policy, as well as education, all of these skills that I have can ultimately serve to make me a great governor for the state and help me raise families up, elevate the very communities that helped me get to where I am today.
So let's tell folks a little bit more about your story. I started off with Central Falls High School grad, obviously have come a long way. You're here, you're a doctor, you're an entrepreneur, but just tell folks, since your days in high school, your path here.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, it's a journey to leave high school and kind of wondering who you are. I had the fortunate opportunity of attending Rhode Island College. At Rhode Island College, I majored in philosophy. I had a few years of reflection and learning and self-edification. I then realized that the drive toward public service might be well suited for healthcare, seeing that healthcare was a mechanism to alleviate suffering in people's lives. Pursued healthcare, was admitted to the School of Medicine at the University of Connecticut, then went on to engage clinical research, technology, and I just realized that there was even a greater opportunity to impact lives through technology. So I took that path and, of course, engaged industry and built a technology and started a business around it, and just gained this overall perspective on everything from addressing people's suffering to leveraging technology and kind of confronting the challenges of industry in order to do that. And now it just so happens to be a time in history and I would say in the lives of Rhode Islanders and Rhode Island families where I did not believe that there was the the type of leadership that was taking those very skills that I have and using them to position Rhode Island families for success and for preparation, for the future. So there's my path and a kind of short summary, but certainly one that I hope expresses the kind of edification and perspective that I've gained and how I aim to use that to advance families in Rhode Island.
And we've seen here in Rhode Island, as you mentioned, you have just how important and integral technology is in state government, both from
Absolutely.
the faltering issues at UHIP and the new computer system to even this past weekend when there was flooding at the Department of Labor and Training and they said that their computers were down. Does not appear that you were even backed up on a cloud.
Right. I think that it's many candidates and individuals in leadership have stated that they have technology experience, understand technology, but one measure that I think is good to use as an assessment of individuals that understand technology is whether they understand the fail-safes that you should have. And those fail-safes can be technological backups, but also just in contracts. I think UHIP, where were the safety measures that ultimately would have created a safer kind of test along the way so that there was a safer deployment process, so we can determine whether what had been created at stage 1 was good enough, or whether there were too many flaws. So absolutely, I think that's one area where I have strength and will contribute a great deal to diminishing the risk for Rhode Islanders, both taxpayers and families, of course, that are now suffering.
So that's just one aspect. We're at the State House last night for the governor's State of the State. What is your assessment? And he talked about parents and families concerned about education, concerned about health and welfare. But where are we and where do we need to be?
So in terms of welfare of children, I will say the challenges and the deaths that have been associated with DCYF, I just want to state, are unacceptable, and they will not happen under my watch. As it relates to education, I want the teachers and families in West Warwick, in Central Falls, in Providence, and across the school districts around the state to know that I am with you, that your schools will not be crumbling, and whatever promises are being made in terms of financial, funding behind the rebuilding of schools. There was a proposal for $1 billion. I think, I would love for you to reflect on the past 3 years. Reflect on what's happened. And based on what you know, what has not or has happened, determine what you think will happen in the future with the current leadership. I will make sure that our school problems are addressed, and I believe that it's important for teachers and families of the students that are being educated to know that the investment isn't only infrastructure, it's also programming. We need to reform our education system to ensure that our students are empowered with the skills and understanding that they can leave high school and be successful. So again, there are two elements of education, and they're often kind of clouded around this midst of funding. It's really about how do we allocate the funds appropriately for our schools and for our families.
And you're running as an independent.
I am.
So talk with me a little bit about that decision. Have you had leanings either way to the Republican or Democratic side? Why independent?
I've always been unaffiliated, and I base that on my belief that you should assess a person's perspectives on worldview, if you will. Also, their degree of knowledge around how do you allocate funds, kind of being responsible. I think it's important for us to be socially responsible and fiscally responsible. And those two go hand in hand. And so historically, I think the parties and the way they draw their lines, it's too divisive to do that, to make that assessment fairly. As a candidate, I believe that being an independent is the most important thing at this time in history. The parties are very divisive. The lines that they're drawing don't allow for instance, the families in East Greenwich to feel that they're being as fairly represented as the families in South Providence. And there are bridges, there are common bonds, there is a common struggle. And I, as an independent candidate, will bring these communities together, will bring the representatives in those communities together to ensure that we're creating dialogue, that we're creating bridges and solutions where all Rhode Islanders can do well.
So what can we expect from you moving forward now that you've officially announced your candidacy? We're here in January, running as an independent, don't have a primary, but you're clearly hitting the campaign trail. What can we expect from you in the coming weeks and months?
You can expect for me to be on the ground. I am ready to take this path, which we call this road to liberty, liberty defined by opportunity. I invite all Rhode Islanders to join me, to stand with me, to walk with me. If you have concerns, if you have perspectives, opinions on what has happened, transpired, I would love to learn your story. I am with you. And so inasmuch as you engage me, I will be accessible, and that's what you can expect from me.
Okay, it's going to get a heated campaign season coming up. Obviously, a lot going on up at the General Assembly. The governor's budget will be released tomorrow. I expect we'll be hearing a lot more from you moving forward when there's
Absolutely.
policy statements or position statements to be made, but we wanted to bring you in here,
Thank
bring you right to the viewers. I'm sure we'll have you back in the future, but this was that introductory latest gubernatorial candidate to throw their hat in the ring, Luis
you.
Daniel Munoz. I appreciate your
Thank you.
taking the time to come in
Thank
today.
you so much.
I'll let you around the corner.
Okay, thank
we'll let you go.
Thank you.
Central Falls High School graduate, UConn Medical School doctor, formed his own tech company and now decided he wants to be your independent candidate along with another independent candidate in the race. So far, for 2018, Dr. Luis Daniel Munoz just announced we wanted to have him in here explain his position as to why he's looking to run for the highest elected office in the state. As I mentioned, I'm sure we'll be hearing more from Dr. Munoz moving forward. Appreciate his taking the time to come here into the studio. It's been a busy day here at GoLocal, starting with last night with State of the State, all the coverage on GoLocalProv.com. 3 o'clock with Rick Simone and the Taste food and drink news. Little Mignotto Prosecco in the office, hearing from some ramen and some other great dining opportunities here in the state. 4 o'clock, news and politics kicked off with Mike Stenhouse, the reaction from the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. They're going to be announcing what they say the progressive bad bill of the week moving forward, talking about their legislative priorities and agenda. And then Avi Neville with the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative talking about upcoming events this year. So we appreciate everyone coming into the studio here. We appreciate your watching and your feedback. Wish everyone a good Wednesday evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow at Thursday with Molly O'Brien at 3 o'clock. I'll be back at 4. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.